Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming to our first event of the year. Get my screen shared here. We're going to give this a couple more minutes. We got about 30 people signed up for this, so we're going to wait for them to start catching up and getting into here. We'll give this about 2 more minutes, just letting these guys get all joined in here, and we'll get this started.
For those that have joined, thank you for joining. We thank you for your patience as well.
There we go. Got a few more joining there. We're up to about 15. I think we had about 22 on the registration list, so quickly approaching the capacity here. All right, it's 3 after. We'll go ahead and get started here. I just want to take a minute. Thank everybody for showing up to our first meeting. This will be a first Tuesday of the month meeting for people who want to learn more about cybersecurity, IT professionals, people who are running businesses or higher up in businesses that are trying to learn a bit more about what's going on in the realm of cybersecurity. It's starting to get it becoming a very popular topic in the world. A lot of bad actors across overseas, a lot of targeted cyber threats that are coming our way. So we're trying to take some initiatives out here to train up the end users, train up anybody who wants this information, and be a resource in the community for nonprofits, people in the industry that don't have a firm or have a team in place to answer or take care of these types of problems. Introduce myself here. I'm Andrew Tyler. I own Tech Tyler MSP. I'm the president. We founded the company back in February of 2019. I started my IT career as a network and systems administrator and worked my way into cybersecurity for the past several years. I'm certified by the PCI DSS Council, which is the Payment Card Industry Professional Organization for a PCIP and internal security auditor. I'm also certified by ISC2 in cybersecurity. I'm also a member of that board for the ISC2, and I am working through the CISP certification for my next certification in cybersecurity. Quick introduction for who we are. Tech Tyler MSP is what we do. We're an IT managed services company based out of South Bend, Indiana. All of our technicians are also locally hired, so everybody here is in town in South Bend, Mishawaka, North Liberty, and Osceola. We also do cybersecurity managed services for companies that have their own IT teams in place. If they need that extra layer of protection, a SOC, some additional security, additional eyes on from the outside world, we can provide that service. We also specialize in server and network engineering, hardware refresh, value added reselling for your software, such as Microsoft Office 365 licensing. A big ask for us right now is the virtual CTO product. That's where if an organization has their own IT team but doesn't have that top level executive or doesn't have a need for a 45-hour-a-week CTO, we can step in to fill that role and help guide companies into the next tech evolution that's coming down the road. And our primary target markets are in the construction and manufacturing space, engineering, vet med, and nonprofits. The topic of our meeting today is the importance of email protection and end user training. The bullet points here are some of the topics we're going to dive into today. The goal of this monthly meeting is to build upon itself through a couple different segments. As we start to dive into this segment, we're going to get into the next module in February, really going into the deeper dive of the attack chain and how end users are causing these types of attacks to take hold inside the organization. So today's going to be a very top level overview of email threat protection and end user training. We're going to get into some prevention and detections, some trainings, examples, and then we'll end with a Q&A. We'll let everyone ask their questions and everything. So there should be no surprise. Your business is under constant attack. The big question is, why is your email system and your employees the largest attack surface in your environment? So I like to use this analogy. If you have 50 employees and they're averaging 20 emails per day being received, that's 1,000 pieces of email flowing through your business every day. That's 365,000 pieces of email in a year. And the question is, how many of these emails actually contain a threat? There's 365,000 opportunities for an employee to fall victim to a well-orchestrated scheme. It takes one click, one little bit of not paying attention that an employee can accidentally compromise your business. And email is the biggest, most used tool in our atmosphere every day. It's on our personal phones, it's on our work phones, it's on our endpoint devices. It gets touched by anything and everything in our lives. So it's the most accessible tool in our repertoire of things for our business, and it's the most affected by hacking and malware attacks. The primary causes of a lot of these attacks are human error. A lot of the mistakes are made by employees, such as falling victim to the phishing scams, misconfigured security settings, or accidental exposure to sensitive information. The second one is weak passwords. This is the biggest thing that I see when dealing with cyber attacks out there. Is the first question I ask once we start getting the remediation process going is, all right, they got into your account. They have your password. Where else have you used this password? And most answers are, this is the only password I have. I use this for anything and everything in my life. I have one password, and therefore every account you own is compromised. That bad actor now has the contents of your email box. They have every account you've ever had that's got an email from it, and they're going to go use that email and password combination everywhere to see if they can get more sensitive information from you, credit card information, payment information, PII data, anything they can sell on the open market or use for financial gain. The last 5 here is the other side of the cybersecurity conversation. A lot of system and software vulnerabilities. You'll hear a lot of IT people talk about, patching your system, reboot your system to apply those things, updating your software to protect from those vulnerabilities. Insider threats, not a lot of things we see, but there is some malicious people out there that will kick the computer on the way out the door or go in and unplug some cables in the server room if it's unsecured. So always got to keep that on the list of the primary cause. Big ones right now are the third-party security risks and social engineering. Third-party security risks in our industry and around us, especially in the healthcare sectors in the South Bend area, there's a lot of people that have reported data breaches, not from their own fault, but it's because of their third-party vendor had a breach. Where they may have stored their data in a database, or they have software that they've used from that vendor, and that vendor suffered the breach, and they had to report it as, I'm sorry, we lost your information through a third-party risk. So it's very important for any business you're doing business with that's going to hold your sensitive data to ensure that they're going through the necessary cybersecurity protections and having your data protected and your best interests in mind. Social engineering, this is probably one of my favorite ones to manipulate on. Everyone puts their lives out on social media. You can Google most people. You can figure out their addresses, phone numbers, personal life items. I really wanted to highlight this one today. If everyone hasn't heard about the big casino hack that happened a couple months back out in Las Vegas, the primary cause of that was social engineering. It wasn't some hacker sitting in a parking lot on your public Wi-Fi trying to breach your network. It was a hacker that figured out who the director of IT was, pretended to be him, called the help desk for that casino and asked for a password reset. And the help desk person reset the password, gave it to the bad actor, and they say it took a total of 3 minutes for this person to compromise that help desk, get the password reset for a high-level IT person, and then he had access to every system that he wanted to. So there was no bugs, no hacks, nothing fancy. It was literally a phone call to a help desk asking for a password reset, and that help desk didn't have a good process of vetting that user calling in. Top targets. So these are the targets that, based on the CrowdStrike report and a couple others in the industry, that these are the kind of the top 5 that are getting hit right now. Manufacturing, of course, it's a big threat in cybersecurity. A lot of the overseas people are looking at our manufacturing processes. We see a lot of rip-off products that they get stolen from the manufacturing side of things, taking our schematics, our engineering items, and repurposing that in other countries for cheaper and faster rates. Healthcare, we hear about everything in healthcare. It's all about the personal data. That's always going to be a high attack vector of getting into the healthcare system. They can get the medical records, and it's also a vulnerable information there. Digital agencies have started to come up in the past couple years. They're starting to realize that digital agencies are a lot like tech companies. They have access to a lot of company data. They have a lot of access to companies' social media accounts, passwords, sensitive information such as that. So they've been coming up on the target list. Retail and e-commerce, they're going to be up there just with the financial background of it. The broad availability, the stolen credit card information. The bad actors are always trying to find a quick way to make a buck. If they can get into your retail and e-commerce information, get your merchant account, start sending those fraudulent transactions, that's going to be a big target for them. And where my heart lies, and the big target right now is nonprofits. Unfortunately, nonprofits comes into this scope because, as the statement says, when every dollar counts, cybersecurity can sometimes take a backseat to the mission critical activities. It's an unfortunate realization that a lot of our nonprofits have to choose between servicing the people that they're trying to service or purchasing cybersecurity products. And in my experience, 9 times out of 10, they're going to service their customers and the people in need, then buy the cybersecurity products. Luckily, in the industry, they're starting to realize that. Microsoft offers a lot of free licensing for nonprofits. A lot of other big cybersecurity companies and other industries are now offering huge nonprofit discounts for these types of top tier products. So, Tech Tyler, we're starting to get into some of the nonprofit servicing. We have a couple nonprofits on our rolls. So we really like to see those agencies taking charge of their cybersecurity protection and utilizing all this free tools and software at their disposal to protect their business. So we're going to get now into the hidden dangers of the email. Every email that comes into your mailbox needs to be analyzed. I like the statement of never trust, always verify versus the trust but verify. I've seen a bad actor in an account emailing back and forth with a person while also the person who owns the account is also emailing back and forth. I always say always verify, because Bob can email you a legitimate email 5 minutes ago. After that, he has messed with a malicious link and now his email is compromised and the hacker is now emailing you. It doesn't take a whole lot of time for that account to get compromised and them to start to intercept the email traffic. You have to train your people and keep your eyes open for different weird anomalies. You know how your companies talk, you know the phrasing, the contents of the email, things like that. If Bob has never sent you a SharePoint link to a document that contains a QR code and all of a sudden he's doing that, that should trigger your idea of there's something wrong here. I probably should call this guy and figure out, hey, are you trying to send me this, or is this a phishing attack? Is your email compromised? Unfortunately, it happens too often in these industries that you can be talking to that person, and then within a couple minutes, that account's been compromised, and now the bad actor is trying to act like them and get different information out of you. Another thing I see for small businesses in the area, nonprofits, things like that, is using free email for their businesses instead of an enterprise email, such as Microsoft or G Suite, the paid for version of Gmail for businesses. I just want to take a quick stressor on this slide here. The reason why I say it's important to have a business email are these keys here. You own your data. We see a lot of people who are using these types of email accounts that the employee leaves, and then they lose all of that data. They can't get into that account. They don't know the communication between the customers and the clients. There's critical data, personal data, possibly HIPAA data or protected data in that mail that that employee now owns and has walked away from. So when you have a business email, you own all of your data. That employee is terminated or leaves, you can pull all that stuff back, lock them out of the account, and take ownership of it. The other side of that conversation is the security of the business email. You can apply stricter security policies. You have strong password policies and the ability to reset those accounts. And then my most important thing is the monitoring, intrusion prevention, and intrusion detection. If you don't have ownership of those email accounts that your employees are using, you don't know if those emails are compromised. That's the biggest problem with a personal account is there's no tools out there that's going to tell you if a bad actor is in your account or if someone is doing malicious items within it. And that's where the event laws come in as well, where you can start seeing some of the attempts. There's a lot of foreign activity going on, things like that. You have no type of visibility in that with a personal account. Um, and the very last one is your image and brand. It promotes a professional company and it promotes trust. If I am a vendor, I am a customer of a business, and they're emailing me from a Gmail account or a Yahoo account, it reduces my level of trust of, is this a legitimate business? This doesn't look like a professional organization. Why are they emailing me from a free account? Now I have to be the worried cybersecurity person of my personal information is in an unsecured personal Gmail account. I don't like this and I don't want to do business with you. So it's very important to have that at businessname.com. You have your enterprise email set up. You can control all your users. You can control your branding, your imaging, and your security all at once. And it's not very many dollars per month per user. So the reasoning to go with a free email account is getting limited every day. So I'm going to go over the attack chain of events. This is typically how a phishing attack, malware injection, all of those types of attacks all start with the same type of events that usually lead to where the end user is been compromised. It always starts with a text message or an email. Usually that text message is from a compromised account that you may have already interacted with. So there's a sense of trust that's already built there, and they're going to exploit that trust. Or it's a text message that's been perfectly timed from your Amazon package. And I know everyone's been getting them lately because it's a big one. There's a problem with your order. We're going to have to issue a refund. Click here to claim your refund from Amazon. It's always that sense of urgency or you need to take action type of message, or it's from a breached trusted source. These attacks are going to, of course, flow to your end user. And your end user is going to have to take some sort of action to go to the web or wherever that threat is trying to take them, to go download a piece of malware, go visit a link, go submit information, go sign into an account. That's that vector of the internet leads to all things bad. If your user can click on the item and go through the internet and can reach that attack of downloading that malware, reaching that vulnerability, executing that PowerShell command to encrypt their system or download malicious viruses, or interact with a phishing scam of sign in to view this document or submit your personal information. That's the typical role of the attack chain. It starts off with that text or email, goes to the user, they're interacting with it, and they're being led down that rabbit hole, leading them to the attack. Our whole purpose is to stop it right here. We don't want to get past the end user. If we can stop the end user from interacting with these threats, the majority of these attacks can go away. So that's what we talk about with threat prevention. With threat prevention, we ask the question, how is your organization preventing malicious emails from arriving to your user's inbox? As an organization, you have to ask yourself, what tools do we put in place that stops this massive amount of phishing and spam and just junk that gets into our business mailbox every day? Do we have advanced email threat protection? Do we have a front scanning system like Proofpoint Essentials, a Barracuda, something that is scanning every piece of mail that comes through, and before it gets delivered to our inbox says, this is good, this is bad? Do you have strong DMARC, DKIM, SPF validation settings? These are some of the new DNS settings in the world that are stopping malicious traffic from flowing through because it's not falling into the categories of validation with these DMARC and SPF records. Is someone trying to send a spoofed email? They say that it's from Microsoft, but it's really from a homegrown web server. Those types of validations. Are we stopping our organization from receiving these because they didn't pass these validation checks? Are you training your end users on how to spot the threat? As much as these tools have gotten so sophisticated with AI and threat detection and coding and all the bells and whistles you can put into software, things will still get through. Not every phishing threat contains a malicious link or a picture that is going to kick off that detection system. It's going to arrive in your user's inbox. How do they recognize that this is not a legitimate email? Are they trained? Have they received their annual cybersecurity training? Are they receiving their monthly videos, teaching them the newest threats that are coming out? How can they decipher between a good email and a bad email? Once they decide that, yes, this is a bad email, is there an SOP? Is there training on what they should do? Most people are just deleting the email. We want them to have them click that report button. We want them to let the organization know, saying, hey, this got through the protective net. We need to figure out why this got through and then stop it for the next time. We need to have that SOP, that standard operating procedure, letting our users know that it's not just delete it and forget it, because you may have recognized it, but that went to 15 other people in the organization that may be susceptible to the attack. We need to report that to the IT team to make sure they're taking care of that threat. Once the threat is gotten through the mailbox, it's not detected as a threat or prevented from the interaction, and our user starts to click on and go down that rabbit hole of being phished or going to that vulnerability or trying to download something malicious. Does your organization have a threat detection policy in place? What is that end user supposed to do when they realize I messed up, I clicked something, and I don't think that this is the right thing I've done? I need some guidance here. What systems do you have in place that says that user has clicked something? Do you have an endpoint detection and response system that stopped that virus from being downloaded? Do you have a firewall in place that stopped that user from going to that malicious website because it's been hosted in a foreign country? Things like that. What other layers of protection do you have that could have stopped that user? And if it didn't stop the user, what detection programs do you have out there that says, I see the threat, we've taken automatic remediation, but we need to do a bit more? Does your IT team have the ability to remediate that reported threat? Do you have an IT team that is receiving these notifications that a threat has been found in your environment and that manual remediation needs to take place? Do you have a documented standard operating procedure or incident response plan on how to respond to an attack when one's been detected? A lot of people click these links and then they just kind of close the window and hope nothing bad happens. It's the wish in one hand, wait in the other, and see what happens. We don't want that to be. We want that to be reported to the IT team. We want there to be a standardized procedure that happens every time something bad happens, and it has to be repeatable. It has to happen every time a threat is detected, to make sure that it doesn't spread in your environment, it doesn't compromise additional accounts, you don't lose valuable personal information, and it causes a situation where you have to report that to the FBI and start having to pay damages on a big cyber breach. The diagram I put here is a very common diagram we use in cybersecurity of kind of the threat detection wheel. We want to identify reducing the attack surface, which devices are on the network, and to identify those vulnerabilities. So we're trying to identify that risk. We're protecting everything that we can. We're putting things out there that protects the environment. That's when the detection comes in. We're going to detect those anomalies and threats in the traffic. We want to be able to respond to that detection and make sure that it's taken care of. And then we go into the recovery of, if that did have damage in the environment, how fast can we recover from it, get the systems back to optimal range, and continue on about our day. So that's kind of the circle of threat detection and remediation that we focus on. We'll get into the employee training side now. This is the big thing that we're pushing here in 2025. As these IT attacks become more sophisticated using AI, the biggest defense for our companies is the frontline employee. They have to be trained up, just like a soldier, of responding to and being able to identify these attacks. If they're not trained to do it and they're not trained to identify it, they'll continue to get through and continue to wreak havoc on our businesses and our communities. So what we typically focus on is a monthly training covering a different type of attack. We get into phishing, we get into malware, we get into vishing, spear phishing, all different types of acronyms and things like that comes into employee training, and how attackers are taking advantage of your company. We always recommend following that up with a quarterly phishing simulation. What this does is it's testing your end users in a safe environment to see if they're following the SOPs that you're putting out there that says, don't click on links, don't click on malicious attachments, look at these identifiers inside emails, make sure you're validating that these emails are coming from the people you're expecting it from. And if they're failing the quarterly phishing simulations, it's going to give you a really good report out of the overall health of your employee training, where you may have to do some remediation training, where you can reward the good and help the more lower side of the scores. We never say punish. We don't want people to lose their jobs over failing cybersecurity tests like that. But we definitely need to know where the weak links are so we can get them stronger. As I say, you will always fail to the level of your training in any sort of attack or training. So we want to always focus on training them and making sure that they're ready to go when that threat comes through. Biggest thing we focus on under the training part is what the email is. Who did the email come from? Are you looking at the sender name, or are you looking at the email that's after it? Are you really inspecting every email that comes through and making sure that it's from that person that is actually sending it? Are you hovering over the hyperlinks before you click them to make sure they're actually going to what you think you're going to go to? Big thing I like to preach is, if it looks suspicious, report it. Have your IT team look at it before you interact with it. If something feels off, trust your gut. Ask an IT expert that's on your IT team, or your managed service provider, or ask a coworker. Ask somebody. If you don't think it looks right, it probably isn't. Something in that email is making you ponder something there. Stop and investigate it. Send it off to the IT team, and then they can vet it for you and come back and say, yeah, this is legitimate. You can interact with it. We checked it. Everything is safe here. Look for the anomalous behavior. If Bob has never sent you a SharePoint document link, it probably is a bad thing. We probably want to call that person and verify, hey, well, you've never sent me a document like this before, and I wasn't expecting it. What are you trying to send me? If that person doesn't answer, or that person says, I didn't send you anything, that's the big cue of, okay, let me report this. And also, Bob, you probably need to call your IT department because it looks like you've been hacked. Asking questions outside the norm. Looking for, a lot of times, a lot of people in the back of the day now have trained on look for typos, look for bad grammar. a lot of the hackers now are using AI to write these things. So a lot of that stuff is starting to go away, whether it's very well written, it's very well orchestrated emails. It doesn't have a foreign person trying to speak English in an email. They're having ChatGPT spit this stuff out, and it's very eloquent, it's very formal. And if that person you talk to doesn't really talk in that way, that could be a big indicator as well of, yeah, it's everything's spelled right, but it's a little bit high level communication from someone who usually just does some plain speak. Changing in the language pattern or word usage, things like that. Just little things that, everyone is who they are and they're kind of set in their ways. And if something is really changing quickly in an email, that could be a pretty good clue as to bad actors in their account, or it's not really coming from that person from the beginning. 7 steps here to implement a security awareness training. So if your organization is not doing any sort of cybersecurity awareness training, this is the kind of the 7 steps to take back to your organization and say, hey, we got problems and we need to start training our people. This is the kind of the walkthrough that we typically approach the senior level suite when we're trying to tell them that they need to implement this. One, you got to have buy-in from the top. If the CEOs, the CTOs, all the people above that runs the show, if they're not in on the importance of this, it's going to be a hard sell from the beginning. So we always start from the top down. We got to get the executive level team on board with the idea that we need to implement this for the year. This needs to happen every month. We need to have a quarterly training simulation. This is what needs to be done, and we need to get 2 big thumbs up from that team before we get to the step 2. Step 2 is we analyze the staff. How big of an analysis assessment do we need? How poor is our cybersecurity? Before we can start putting in tools and training and everything, we need to know where our gaps exist and what training we need to implement first in order to close those gaps and reduce that attack surface. Step 3 is we're going to schedule that consistent training. We're having this webinar on the first Tuesday of every month. We're going to try to maintain that level of consistency so everyone can put it on a calendar and they'll know every day of this month is going to be training day. I know that this training is going to come out on the 1st. I need to have it done by the 7th. Whatever cadence your organization needs to set, but it should be regular and consistent so the employee knows when it's coming and they know their expectations on to complete it. Once that training is scheduled and being completed, we want to review that training performance regularly. We want to make sure that the training is being completed because they may not open the email or they may skip it or they may be out on vacation. We want to make sure that they're completing the training every month. And also, are they passing the training? Are they absorbing the lessons that you're putting out to them? Or are they just kind of brain deading through the slides and hitting thumbs up that they learned everything? So we want to make sure that they're actually absorbing this training. That's why step number 5 is so important, as to test your end users. We're going to send that phishing simulation out. It's going to be a test of some previous things that we had sent out during the months. And hopefully it's a good reflection of the training that we've put out in the past couple months, that they were able to recognize that threat because they watched a video on it last month. 6, we have to educate the people who failed the phishing simulations. Once that phishing simulation is wrapped up, we want to go back and provide the extra help and have that kind of closed door meeting with the people that failed, typically one-on-one. You don't want to just do a big group of failures and say, yeah, you guys stink. This is, you guys failed. This is a problem. It's always that one-on-one coaching saying, hey, we got to make sure that you understand that this is a big threat in our environment. You have to make sure that you're taking necessary steps to protect our business from these email attacks. Unfortunately, you didn't pass your last test. Can you tell me why you failed for this? And kind of walk them through how they failed and what they need to do better on. And that number 7 is implement that policy process. We want to set up a clear and trailable policy documentation. A lot of this stuff will come back to the cyber insurance claims. If you have a breach or a cyber attack, they're going to come back and look at your policies and look at your standards, and they're going to ask for your training records. Like if you had a car accident, they're going to look at your driving record. Well, if you have a cybersecurity incident, the insurance company is going to look at your training record. Are you taking the necessary steps to prevent the attack? If not, you're leaving yourself wide open for an attack. Your cyber insurance company or your business insurance company is going to have a real problem paying out your claim if you're not taking these preventative steps in your daily business to make sure that these threats don't occur. So that's the biggest thing I stress with companies is to make sure that you have sound policy and procedures in place. Employees are signing off on those, saying that they received them, that they understand them, and that it can be brought in as, unfortunately, we have to use the term as evidence if there is a cyber attack saying, hey, this employee didn't follow the training and this led to a cyber attack, but here's their training roster that they were trained on this, they were told not to do this, and unfortunately they did. So that will kind of cover your business in a CYA method if it comes into a litigation standpoint. This is my favorite part. I put together some threat examples from the past couple of months that came into our help desk. This first slide is actually my personal phone. This is the depth of a cyber attacks that I deal with every day owning a cybersecurity company. This is my spam and blocked list from my personal phone. From December 6th through Saturday, I had 44 individual text messages in December. I had received 852 spam emails in my Gmail account from December 5th up to yesterday when I put this together. And the last message here was, this one actually almost got me, so I put this in here, was I had just ordered several items from Amazon for a customer that was asking for some new PCs and everything. Ordered it, not more than 40 minutes later, I get this text message that my recent order is eligible for a full refund due to seller violating Amazon's policies. My brain was in lizard mode at the time because I was driving, and I stopped, and I looked at my phone, I almost clicked the link, and then I realized that it was from a 737 number, but they got me in that moment of vulnerability of, I just placed the Amazon order, I'm not really looking at the message, I just kind of read the top caption of, there's a problem with my Amazon order, and it was a perfect storm of, I just placed this not more than a half hour ago, there's a problem with it, I got to go reorder these parts. It's always that sense of urgency, there's a problem, you need to act. There's the false positivity, the pre-approval, congratulations, you won, the lotto approach of take action now before this opportunity expires. All these attacks have the same kind of monikers of trying to grab your attention and get you to act quickly before you really look at the message. This is a sign-in log. This is what I'm talking about when there is a business email in place. This is a user that has some pretty popularity. They're constantly trying to breach their account. This is a sign-in page from yesterday, January 6th. This is a 24-hour log, but I couldn't take as many screenshots here, so this only shows 21 minutes of activity. There was 31 malicious login attempts to this account within 21 minutes, and those logins came from 14 different countries. You can see that the authentication requirement is all single-factor authentication. This is why we require multi-factor authentication. And then was also a reason why we put in foreign country blocks for our 365 tenants, so no one from an overseas country can log into the tenant unless we pre-authorize it through a policy. These types of attacks are happening 2 to 3 minutes on this account all day, every day. And they're just cycling through until they hopefully find the right password or they get the right authentication, which hopefully, they're not going to have the MFA code. They're not going to be able to get around that unless the user decides to somehow fall for a phishing scam and authenticate it. But this is the brunt of an account attack that could be happening in your organization to a numerous amount of people that you don't know because your threat prevention, your threat detection doesn't pick up on any of this until this type of attack is successful. This is the behind the curtain look for cybersecurity of this is what's happening all day, every day, and what we strive to protect your organization against every single day. This was a good one. This was a fake 401k email that came through to a victim a couple months ago that led to him getting his 365 account compromised. Luckily, our threat detection system found it, stopped it. It was able to save his account and stop the company from experiencing the breach. The attack started with a fake email that was pretending to be their own company. It sent him, the victim, a direct email to Bob Smith, and it had information here saying that we're starting a 401k for the company. We need you to enroll. This is the end of year, new things coming up for January, so we're going to re-enroll you in your health benefits, and we're starting a 401k. And the attachment had a PDF here you see on the right. Inside the PDF that's attached to the email is a picture from their website. It has their business name in it. It has the specific victim's name in it. And it has the specific victim's email at the bottom of the PDF. It looks very legitimate. He scanned the QR code on his phone, personal device. It asks him to log into his 365, which he does. It prompts him for his authenticator, his MFA. He authenticates. And that's how the bad actor was able to steal his session token and his MFA code. And it was able to try to get into his account right after that. As I said, this is the next page here where we start to get the SOC response. They're recognize that now there is a bad entity trying to log into that account after he fell for that QR code scam. They were trying to use an agent called Axios 1.7, which is offered through a Global Connectivity Solutions LLP company. Says the rule description down here at the bottom says Axios user agent is a strong indicator of a phishing as a service infrastructure. So our tool jumped in, it shut his account down, blocked everything from being taken over, sends us the alert that says, hey, this account's under attack. We've shut it down, but you need to take some additional steps. Our team steps in, we reset the account, we reset the MFA, we contact the user, we get him back into his account, we do some other additional scans to ensure that the bad actor didn't get any information, and we return the account ownership back to the user, and then tell him that, and he immediately recognized that I messed up. He was already trying to call us as we were already responding to the incident, which is some good training for him he knew that he had messed up and was already trying to call us. But this was a very sophisticated attachment that had very specific information in it. That was a really good one to take a look at. So as I said, these email attacks are getting more and sophisticated. It's not the to whom it may concern. These attachments have your name in them. They have your email in it. So you have to be very strict at what you're looking at and what you're opening and making sure that you're not interacting with malicious items. Next one here. This was probably one of my favorite ones in the past 30 days. This was the thread that started as a VIP package. The bad actor wrote a series of emails back and forth to himself, then created a sense of urgency saying, all right, the VIP package has been made, but you haven't made the payment for it. So the email threat is back and forth between himself, the bad actor, and the owner of the company. And the owner of the company, of course, is by name. Everything's legitimate by the name, but it's not a real email thread. He then forwards this fake email thread to the payroll person or the accounts payable person saying, hey, Bob Smith has authorized payment for this invoice. See the thread below. Can you please send payment? Well, the accounts payable person says, this is odd. I haven't heard anything about this. Let me call Bob and figure this out. They call Bob. Bob says, yeah, I have no idea what this is. They stop the thread. But this shows the sophistication of trying to create a sense of trust that, oh, no, I've been talking to your owner, Bob, and he's already signed the agreement. We've already sent the invoice. He's reviewed it. Everything's good. All you got to do is send over the payment. So that was a good attack to see there. So I like to wrap this up here with the meeting here with a laugh. Unfortunately, IT people, with a law enforcement background, a military background, IT people kind of get the brunt of the stick every day. No one calls us when they're having a good time. It's always my computer's broke, something's happening, the world's on fire, and only you can save me. So we try to keep it light in our industry. So I want to send a couple oddball things that I've seen the past few days. Doom scrolling on Instagram, This is the newest trend that I now realize that we have a problem in cybersecurity as it's becoming commercialized and trying to earn money off of this. I was scrolling through the Instagram reel, and Robert Downey Jr. is now teaching me about cybersecurity through a company, and he's worried about hackers and scammers. Um, Next couple reels down, the NFL icon Ray Lewis, wonderful football player, is telling me about the 2024 MITRE attack and how to stop hackers. So these guys are wealths of knowledge in the cybersecurity industry. I know you know about Tony Stark and Ray Lewis, but they're apparently now cybersecurity experts. So if you don't listen to them, you can listen to RDJ and Ray Lewis. They know what they're doing. But this kind of tells me where the industry of cybersecurity is unfortunately going. It's a very serious topic, and I don't like to see these types of ads taken on by celebrity endorsers and representatives and things like that. I just don't think it's the right message to be sending when it's a very serious event. So a lot of times I ask people when we're doing remediation about the phishing email that, hey, we saw that it went out to, 7, 8, 15 people, and I'll call that user and say, hey, did you see that phishing email? And this is the response I typically get. Can't fall for the scam if you don't check your email. That is a way to be a great defense. And then also don't be this person. I don't always think about cybersecurity, but when I do, it's usually too late. So don't be that person. That's why we're having this conversation here today, to make sure cybersecurity is always at the front of the mind process here, and making sure that we're always discussing this and staying on top of it. So now we're going to get into some questions here. If you want to raise your hand, and I think you can unmute your mic after you raise your hand, I will take any questions you have here for that. Well, there's also a Q&A on the right side that you can actually type your questions in as well.
There you go.
Hey, Chrissy, go ahead.
Hey there, Andrew. So when you were talking about letting IT know about suspicious emails, what I've noticed since we're fairly new to Tech Tyler, what we've noticed is we'll get those quarantine emails and we have the option to click release, but I have not seen an option to block or report. How are we supposed to do that?
I will follow up with you on that. That's the new Inky tool we just deployed to you guys a couple weeks back. If it's already in the Microsoft quarantine, that means it's already been detected as a threat. And if it's in your quarantine by accident, where if it's from a legitimate vendor and you need that out and don't want it to go there, I can show you how to say that I trust this sender. I don't want it to go to quarantine. But if you're already asking for it to be released from that, that means that Microsoft protection has already detected that there's something weird with this, and we're going to put this in the quarantine bucket until the user can review it and say, yes, this is good or bad.
Okay, so are you saying that there's no need for us to report it as bad because it's already in Microsoft and Tech Tyler's? Because I've had plenty that I've released because they weren't bad.
Right. So when you and the end user has the option, you can choose to release that and add it to your safe list to the quarantine. But if it's in quarantine and you don't want it there, if it's in quarantine and you don't want it in your inbox, then the tool has already done its job. It can stay in quarantine. If you find that, man, I have 100 messages from this company in my quarantine every day, you can submit a request to us saying, hey, bobsmith.com, they send us way too much. I always get a quarantine digest every day with 100 messages. Can you just block them the ability to send it to us? We could add that to your universal block list where it doesn't even go to quarantine. It just stops that company from sending you any correspondence.
Okay.
And if, like I said, if you have things in quarantine that shouldn't be there, submit a ticket to us. We can add that to what's called a safe list, and that'll stop going to your quarantine and will be delivered straight to you.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
No problem. Thanks for your question, Chrissy. Any other questions Be on anything that you have IT wise. They revoked my therapy card many years ago, so I can only help with IT items now. All right, I will get this pulled back up here then. Next up here, so I'm going to talk about now the.
Andrew, thank you very much. This is Jerry Frost.
Hey, Jerry.
I have a hard stop, and great job. A lot of good information, and keep doing what you do. Thanks. Everyone have a great day.
Appreciate you guys.
Yep.
All right. And so the February webinar, just as I said, we're going to continue on this thing every month. The February one is going to be more of a deep dive into how your employees are able to infect your systems and how to prevent it. We're going to look at that attack surface analysis, how those end users are able to manipulate those systems, click on those phishing emails, what's happening to your servers, your endpoints, your web apps like Office 365, talking about the importance of delegated admin rights, privileged access management, making sure they don't have the ability to install those malicious items on the computer, how other tools like DNS filtering and foreign country blocking can stop those attacks, what tools your business should have in place like EDR, MDR, that's endpoint detection, managed detection, advanced threat protection solutions. And then we're going to dabble into the dangers of the BYOD, bring your own device and personal devices. A lot of businesses are trying to rely on employees doing the work from home with their own personal devices, and how that can be kind of a big problem in your organization if you're not taking the necessary steps to protect yourself. The last slide here, I just want to thank you again for coming out to here. If you are not a customer and you don't know, we do offer a free cybersecurity risk assessment. So if your organization feels that they don't have these protections in place, you'd like us to come out and do a quick evaluation for you. It's usually a couple hours on site. We do a quick run through of your servers, your endpoints, your email system, your network to make sure you have some of these things in place. We'll point out some vulnerabilities, what you may or may not be doing right. And then if you are in need of services, we can always give you a quote after that. Our contact information is there on the bottom. Again, as we're wrapping up a couple minutes early here, I appreciate everybody joining. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us here at the bottom information. And I'll be lucky to hear from you. So thank you for your time. I'll let you guys all get back to it. And if there's anything you need from me, please let me know.